Yeah, right here, go ahead.
This is off topic about your World Cup czar. I was wondering if you could specify something exactly, given that New York's hosting no games in the city, and technically, I think that's what the people in Jersey would tell you. And from what I understand, FIFA has pretty strict contracts on what host cities have control over. If you could tell me exactly what you hope for her to be doing or coordinating.
So look, we have an incredible opportunity. The most watched sporting event in the world is coming right here to New York City and New Jersey. And I've already had New Yorkers stop me in the street asking me for help to get them tickets. Had a man who asked me how he could get Brazil-Morocco tickets. I told him I'm looking. The importance of having a World Cup czar is to ensure that the World Cup is not simply a moment in time where people from across the world visit this city, but it's also a moment where we introduce our city once again to the world and to ourselves.
Well, a lot has happened in the past 12 hours. I went to bed elated that South Africa would be hosting the 2026 Women's AFCON, only to wake up and find out that the sports minister has released a statement that is contradictory to the remarks that were made by Deputy Minister Peace-Mabe live on television when she said that South Africa would be hosting the Women's AFCON, which starts in March. I want us to actually go through the statement that was released. And what is important here is that he says that is Gayton McKenzie. At this stage, no formal decision has been taken to relocate the tournament from Morocco. So Morocco remains the officially designated host of the 2026 Women's AFCON, and CAF has not yet triggered any alternative hosting processes. But what he does mention is that South Africa has expressed willingness to support CAF if required, should alternative hosting arrangements for the AFCON become necessary. Why would they become necessary? Because this AFCON, Women's AFCON, is taking place in just a couple of weeks, literally 60 days away from, today. And then he also talks about the processes that would need to be followed should South Africa come through as a contingency plan. There would need to be formal communication from CAF. It would need to be approved through the cabinet processes. There would be a need for confirmation of host cities, stadium availability, accommodation, transport capacity, etc. So he does say that the remarks made by the Deputy Minister reflect government's long-standing engagement on supporting African football. But the main takeaway from this is that South Africa is not hosting the 2026 Women's AFCON. They have not been formally designated as the hosts. Morocco are still the hosts.
La famille, c'est chaud. Info, côté féminin cette fois-ci, avec le Maroc qui se retire de l'organisation de la Coupe d'Afrique des Nations. C'est dans 60 jours. Comment est-ce que ça va se passer? Et tout ça, ça part d'où? La vice-ministre des Sports d'Afrique du Sud à la cérémonie des Super League Awards qui annonce que l'Afrique du Sud va remplacer le Maroc dans l'organisation de la CAN 2026 côté féminin qui se passe dans 60 jours parce que le Maroc du coup s'est retiré. Et est-ce que l'Afrique du Sud sera prêt? Déjà, on attend quand même que la CAF puisse se prononcer sur cette affaire-là parce que c'est pas n'importe qui le dit et le timing, je trouve qu'il est pas bon du tout. La compétition, c'est dans moins de 2 mois. Comment est-ce qu'on va faire? Et même côté sud-africain, certes, ils ont déjà organisé des CAN, ils ont des stades, un championnat qui se porte bien, mais quand tu regardes à la loupe, tu peux te poser la question de savoir est-ce que dans 2 mois, ils seront prêts pour accueillir une Coupe d'Afrique des Nations côté féminin. Donc voilà, des dramas encore et toujours. Qu'est-ce qui se passe au Maroc? Pourquoi ils se sont retirés de cette CAN 2026 côté féminin? Est-ce que l'Afrique du Sud va vraiment reprendre les rênes pour organiser la compétition? On attend que la CAF se prononce. Vous, qu'est-ce que vous en pensez, les gars?
There's a new twist to the hosting rights of the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations. The tournament, which is expected to take place in Morocco from March 17, allegedly has a new host. There's this trending video that was released by the South African broadcasting channel SABC, where the Deputy Sports Minister, Peace-Mabe, announced that Morocco has withdrawn from hosting the 2026 WAFCON, and now South Africa will be the new host, with just 45 days away from kickoff.
When Morocco said we're not able to host South Africa, we said yes, we're available because we feel we have the necessary infrastructure and the support, of course, of hosting WAFCON.
However, There is no official news from the Confederation of African Football, and there is also no official news from Moroccan FA of them announcing that they are withdrawing from hosting the 2026 WAFCON. So, CAF, what is going on? Where should we book our flight? Are we going to South Africa or we are going to Morocco? Why is Morocco withdrawing from hosting the WAFCON, and why is it going to South Africa if the news is true?
Là, ce qui vient à peine de se produire. Oui, comme vous le savez, comme je vous en ai fait déjà part, le Maroc doit organiser en principe la prochaine Coupe d'Afrique des Nations féminines. Et vous n'allez pas y croire. Le Maroc a décidé à la dernière minute qu'il ne veut plus organiser la Coupe d'Afrique des Nations qui doit avoir lieu au mois de mars. Et là, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? C'est l'Afrique du Sud, le pays de Motsepe qui a dit « Nous, on veut l'organiser. On a déjà toutes les infrastructures. On se propose à la place du Maroc afin d'organiser cette Coupe d'Afrique des Nations. » Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Est-ce que le Maroc était tellement en colère à la suite de ce qui s'est passé à la CAN? Le Maroc a décidé que non, trop c'est trop, que maintenant exactement vous pourrez sans nous. En tout cas, qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
But the question is, why isn't Morocco hosting the Women's AFCON anymore? Does it have anything to do with what happened earlier in terms of the AFCON and that chaotic and dramatic final? In terms of those details, as soon as they come through, they will definitely be communicated.
First of all, Morocco is tired. They are tired of your constant criticism. They are tired of you calling them corrupt. They are tired of your bastardization. They are tired. So they say they might not host this year's Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Now, the Africa Cup of Nations, the Women's Africa Cup of Nations will begin on the 17th of March. You understand? And now they say they will withdraw. They are not ready to host. They will not host again. You guys are saying, Morocco is corrupt. Now they say they will not host. So let your country go and be the host. Now the South African sports minister are saying that they might step in to host it. Now, this particular WAFCON, this year's WAFCON is very important. That is because it will determine the countries that will go to the next year, the Women's World Cup. The fact is, Morocco has everything. Infrastructure, the pitch, hotels, train, they have everything. You understand? Now, CAF are saying that they will try and talk to Morocco to rescind their decision. But Morocco is saying they will not, because the insult from outside is too much. Everything Morocco. And they are saying that they might actually withdraw from hosting under 17 African Cup of Nations as well. So to the people that are saying that we can host it, you cannot go and bid. You can bid to host the under 17 African Cup of Nations. You can bid to host the WAFCON. The insult was too much. The bastardization was too much. Everything was too much. They are tired.
Way they carry this tournament with just such welcoming energy, and they just took care of everyone, and it was just so nice, and it was just so happy to be there.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. And I mean, the stats show this was the most successful AFCON in terms of viewership, in terms of attendance, everything.
Sponsorships and everything.
This has been the most successful AFCON, and if you watched it online, it was different. Like, you just had to be there.
You had to be there. I did say it to you lot. What did I say to you lot? I said to you, this AFCON is going to be the biggest AFCON that you'd ever seen.
And it was.
They're going to put Morocco on the map. Remember, I told you lot this last year when we had Super Yusuf and the other boys on the panel, and I said it to you lot. They said, this AFCON is going to be mental. So yeah, and watch for the World Cup.
After hosting the best, the #1 African Cup of Nations for men ever that has seen, we are now meant to be hosting the African Cup of Nations for women. But what happened with the punishment in the final, Morocco, I believe, have said, you know what, if you're not going to work alongside us, we're now going to withdraw. We're going to withdraw that, and we're going to give it to someone else. Apparently, South Africa's deputy minister has said, we are going to host the African Cup of Nations for women, which is only in 60 days before kickoff. There's been no confirmation yet, but apparently Morocco has withdrawn, and now South Africa will be hosting. As I said, the most successful African Cup of Nations ever, the most watched African Cup of Nations ever. And CAF, after everything we've done, they decided to give Senegal a weak punishment, a statement to say, it's okay to do whatever you want. You can do whatever in terms of walking off the field, something that really impacts the result rather than this towel scandal, which has no effect to the game. No, we're going to treat everybody the same, and there's going to be no effect. After the lies, the corruption lies, the fake news, all this ridiculous tsunami of news against Morocco, CAF just sat back and let it happen. They didn't come out with any statements. They didn't say, this person's going to be punished for making fake news. They just let it happen. We've seen Idris Elba singing in the African Cup of Nations for final. When have you ever seen that in any other final in Africa? Gary Lineker was also turning up for the final match. Again, we've never seen this before. So I support this 100%. I said it in my last video that blew up in terms of we should never host another African Cup of Nations for a long, long while and focus on FIFA. We've got the Club World Cup, the World Cup. Let's focus on bigger things. Let's leave African Cup of Nations to other nations that want to host it. We will focus on ourselves, and this is a brilliant move. I absolutely hope this is true. This is a beautiful move.
The best option, and currently as we speak, the best FA president to Africa. Nobody comes close, but Biad number 2 Biad is delivering. Wow. And your male football pay, and your men's football pay, infrastructure, management, everything is on a point for our opening care. And that is the kind of a leader you need in our situation. So not people who come to enrich themselves, not people who come with their selfish interest to make sure football is dying. To big up to Openino for that wonderful job or no else and they are equipping their people too. Went to Ivory Coast and I saw Moroccan journalists that they came and you see they are equipped by the FA and order. This is what we love to see. If we decide to learn from the people that we are supposed to learn from, for Africa, yeah. Then the show Biabeka Samoa the FIFA air support. We've seen government supporting it,